Hello, wise woman. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Wanga, and this is Woman Wellness, a place for every woman who's looking to take back control of her life, understand her body, and heal herself naturally. If this is your first time joining us, then welcome. Please like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and when you're done watching, share it with another woman that you know will benefit from this video. And without further ado, let's get into it. So today we're going back to the basics. Back to the basics. What is hormone imbalance? Understanding hormone imbalance. And it's important that you understand this first so that everything else that we build on top of this, all the videos, all the content that we'll be doing going forward will be about hormone imbalance. We're understanding how hormone imbalance can happen in the body. So this is the basics. This is what we should have all been taught in sex ed class back in high school, but we were not. Anyway, it's not too late to learn. What is hormone imbalance? Before we get into what exactly hormone imbalance is, it's important to understand what hormones actually do in the body. So I'm not going to bore you. We're not going to get deep into biology, but I'm just going to give you a brief on the key glands that you need to know and understand, plus which hormones they produce. And then we'll get into what actually causes hormone imbalance. I'm going to break this down into a few parts, maybe 3 or 4 part series, but in this episode, I'm just focusing on what hormone imbalance is and also what causes it. So when do we really hear about hormone imbalance? We only hear about hormone imbalance when maybe our aunt or our mom is having hot flashes and you're like, oh, her hormones are a little bit off, or we only hear about hormone imbalance when we see a doctor and maybe we're having acne. Then they put you on the pill because they told you that you have hormone imbalance. Or we hear about hormone imbalance when our period goes missing or when our period is irregular, then you're told hormone imbalance. But what is hormone imbalance, right? That's the question. So first of all, in your body, your entire body, there are glands spread throughout your body that produce hormones. And hormones are chemical messengers that are released into the bloodstream and go into your body, into your organs and tissues to do whatever process they've been sent to do. These go everywhere. I mean, hormones are basically running the show. Digestion, hormones. Sleep, hormones. Your period, obviously, hormones. Your mood, hormones. Your bone health, hormones. Your sex drive, hormones. Everything in your body, pretty much every system is run by hormones. So how do you narrow it down to say, I have imbalance on this part of the body? Well, in women, there are 3 particular glands that are really important for you to understand how they work. Not like a doctor would have to understand them, but just in general understand where they are and what they do. Because this will help you be able to understand and see whenever you may be experiencing symptoms of hormone imbalance. One of these, or the first of these, so there's 3. There's your ovaries, your adrenal glands, and your thyroid. I'll start with the ovaries. Your ovaries, I think we all know where those are. You have 2 ovaries. Naturally, you have 2 ovaries, and they're on either side of your uterus. Your ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone, and they make the eggs that become babies if you ovulate and it gets fertilized. And that's their main function. Obviously, they're in control of your period and your whole menstrual cycle. The health of your ovaries will determine how well you menstruate and how good or how healthy your cycle is. The second one is your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are located right above your kidneys. So they sit above your kidneys. And I like to call them Zen masters because they help to keep you zen. Your adrenal glands are what help to buffer stress. So whenever there's stress going in your body, your adrenal glands release cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and they help to manage stress, but your adrenal glands also help to balance blood sugar. Now, I did a video on understanding how your adrenals work and how it affects your menstrual cycle, your fertility, your mental health, your immune system, etc., and how to start reversing symptoms of adrenal fatigue, which can be experiencing just complete fatigue or weird cravings and not sleeping enough, body aches and irregular menstruation, PMS, etc. I will link it somewhere either on the video, but definitely in the bio. So you can go and have a look at that. Your adrenal glands, so they produce cortisol to manage stress, and they also help to balance your blood sugar. This is important. If your blood sugar is not balanced, then you are going to experience hormone imbalance, which I'll get into a little bit. By the way, diabetes is hormone imbalance. It's blood sugar not being properly regulated because your adrenals are a bit tired out, and then your body's not responding well to insulin. Finally, you have your thyroid, which is located here. So you can see all these glands are in different parts of the body, but guess what? They're so intimately connected. And as a woman, when one of them is out of balance, you're going to feel it in different places. I'll talk about that in a moment. Let me not jump the gun. So your thyroid is located here, and your thyroid produces thyroid hormone. Now, your thyroid, think of your thyroid as, you know that auntie that is in everybody's business? That's kind of your thyroid. Your thyroid is in everybody's business. And when I mean everybody, like every system in your body, or nearly every system in your body. It's when it comes to digestion, your thyroid is involved. When it comes to your menstrual cycle, your womb health, your thyroid is involved. When it comes to weight loss, metabolism, your thyroid is involved. When it comes to your immune system, your thyroid is involved. When it comes to how well your joints, your muscles, your bones work, your thyroid is involved. When it comes to your mental health, your thyroid is involved. There is so much that your thyroid is involved that it's unfortunate. And this is the thing that really makes me sad and bothers me a lot, is that a lot of women are underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed when it comes to their thyroid, because so often with the thyroid, it's important to consider the bigger picture rather than just looking at the thyroid. So especially in women, when we start to have hormonal imbalance issues going on, when we start to experience a lot of different things going on in our body, it's so important for the doctor or the gynecologist or whoever is having a look at us to look at the thyroid in the context of everything else that is going on in the body. And I'll give a simple example in a moment. If the thyroid is underperforming, then it's called hypothyroidism, and it can become autoimmune, which is called autoimmune hypothyroidism, commonly known as Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or just Hashimoto's for short. And when your thyroid is overperforming or overfunctioning, it's called hyperthyroidism, and the autoimmune version of it is called Graves' disease. So the one that is most common in women, especially our age now, which is cropping up so much for us, is hypothyroidism, which is underfunctioning of the thyroid. And the autoimmune version seems to be more prevalent than the normal just hypothyroidism. So it's so important that our thyroid is really we get a good look at our thyroid and understand how our thyroid works, because like I said, it's involved in so many processes in the body. So when we're treating all the other symptoms that are going on in the body, it's important to keep in mind that we also need to nurture and love and promote the proper function of the thyroid. So what's an example of what may be going on in the body where all these are going on? Well, this is where we get to the definition of hormone imbalance. What is hormone imbalance? Have you ever been to an event where there's a choir singing and there's just that one person in the choir who's doing the most? I mean, they are doing the most. And though the choir was sounding great, now it kind of sounds a little bit off because there's just that one person who's doing the most in the choir, and then it just doesn't sound so good anymore. Well, that's exactly what hormone imbalance happens, how hormone imbalance happens. When one of the glands starts to malfunction, the other two have to start compensating. And if one of the hormones starts to malfunction, it's not being produced properly or is being underproduced, then the other glands and hormones also now have to start compensating for the burden of the hormone or the gland that is not working well. So that's exactly what really hormone imbalance is. And an example of this is if you have ever been in an extreme stressful situation that didn't last, that lasted more than maybe a couple of weeks or a couple of months, where you're just in an extreme stress. And stress can be maybe you are grieving the loss of a loved one, or maybe you lost your job, or maybe you were actually having a physical health issue. And you had this kind of stress going on in your body for a really long time. Then you realize your period started to get a bit irregular. Maybe it started coming a bit late, or maybe it started becoming a bit more painful. And then you noticed you started to catch colds or flus much easier. Or you just started to have a lot of body pains and you just felt tired all the time, even if you slept. And you just kind of lost your bearings a little bit. Maybe you can't concentrate as well. Maybe you can't focus as well. Maybe you can't sleep as well. That's typically a good sign of dysregulation in your entire hormonal loop. So your ovaries, adrenals, and thyroid their function have all been thrown off. So you can see why it's so important to keep balance in this hormonal loop. Because as women, this is the foundation of our hormone balance, and it is the foundation and core of us thriving. If we're going to thrive in this life, if we're going to have energy, if we're going to have, the good, nice, tight curves and beautiful skin, and if we're going to feel great every day when we wake up and just feel, amazing within ourselves and feel mentally present in everything that we do, then our OAT axis has to be balanced. In the next episode, I will talk more about this and how to obviously balance it naturally and everything that you can start to do. Now let's get into what causes it. The first thing that causes hormone imbalance is your diet. What you eat can cause hormone imbalance. And hey, if you're liking this video, if you feel like you've already learned something and you're benefiting from this already, please like the video, subscribe. It tells me that you are actually finding this helpful. So food can cause hormone imbalance. It's not all food, but certain foods have shown to cause hormone imbalance or make it worse. What are one of those things? I'll give a few examples, actually. First one is dairy. Dairy and dairy products can cause or make worse hormone imbalance. How does this happen? Milk, any animal's milk, is designed to feed an infant in the first few weeks and months of their life so they can grow quickly, so their immune system can develop quickly enough to set them up for this world, and so many other things. It contains a buckload of nutrients which every infant would need in their first few months or weeks of their lives. And then it also contains hormones, because hormones are important for growth and development and everything of that nature. So now what happens when we start taking hormones of a different animal or different source and start putting them in our body? One of the classical cases that you'll see in hormone imbalance is people with hormonal acne. Once you take out dairy from their diet, you'll see that hormonal acne starts to clear away. And especially hormonal acne, by the way, is all over here. So if you experience acne mostly in this area, take dairy out of your diet and you should start to see your skin clear up, because dairy exacerbates hormone imbalance or can cause hormone imbalance. The second thing is meat, conventional meat. Conventional meat, again, unfortunately, especially where there is a lot of fat in the meat, hormones tend to be fat soluble. So estrogen in particular is fat soluble, meaning that it stays in fat. In fact, we make estrogen in our fat cells as well. This is why weight management is important when it comes to hormone imbalance. So meat can cause hormone imbalance. One, because of the antibiotics that the animals are given. Those throw off our hormone imbalance, but also because the animal has hormones, right? Another thing is sugar. Refined sugar can cause hormone imbalance. This is especially important if you have polycystic ovarian syndrome. If you have high testosterone, this is important that you completely eliminate refined sugar. And when fruit sugar, that natural sugars that you find in your whole foods, but sugar that has been added to foods. This sugar throws off your insulin response when we continuously take in sugar, and then this can promote testosterone production, and obviously we don't need as much testosterone in our bodies, unfortunately, and this can throw off hormone imbalance, especially for women who have PCOS and high testosterone levels. Also, if you have a history of diabetes in your family, a history of obesity in your family, then sugar should really be one of the things that you consume the least, because then you become predisposed to hormone imbalance by simply taking sugar. The second thing that can cause hormone imbalance is lifestyle. So lifestyle choices or lifestyle habits. For example, alcohol. Alcohol is basically liquid sugar. So any woman who's experiencing period pains, if you're experiencing any sort of irregular periods, of course, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids, etc., anything that has to do with your womb health, if you're experiencing that, then alcohol is something that you also want to stay away from in order to help heal your body, but also start to reverse hormone imbalance. A lack of sleep. I cannot stress to you how important sleep is important, how important sleep is. It's really good. Melatonin is your sleep hormone, and it's important for your ovarian health, but it's also important for fertility. So sleeping is extremely important, and sleep deprivation can throw off your hormone balance. So sleep is really important because it also helps to reduce inflammation in the body. If we're not sleeping enough, then we're driving inflammation into the body, and inflammation is the worst thing that you can have when you're dealing with hormone imbalance. Another thing is stress. Stress, I cannot stress this enough, that it is important to manage stress in the body. I've mentioned before that stress can be chemical, emotional, digestive, or physical. Whichever your trigger is, whichever your input of stress is, it's important to manage stress, because stress makes your hormones go crazy. Like I said with your adrenal glands, if you remember, stress causes cortisol to be put out. And what actually is important to note is that all your sex hormones, cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of that are made from cholesterol. So they have the same building block. Now, what happens is called a pregnenolone steal. And this is when there is constant stress in the body. Pregnenolone, which is the starting block for cortisol and progesterone, is diverted to the making of cortisol. So the more stressed you are, instead of pregnenolone being equally divided to make cortisol and to make progesterone, most of it ends up being diverted to make cortisol to deal with the stress. This is why progesterone levels become low, then your period becomes irregular, you may have recurrent miscarriages, or you may just even have trouble conceiving. So stress is an extremely important thing to manage. And also, if you're having maybe things like fibroids or adenomyosis or any growths of, that are hormonally dependent, when you are stressed, they grow much quicker. So if you have, for example, fibroids, and you are in a really stressful situation, they are going to grow so much quicker because your hormones have gone crazy because of stress. Medications. Are you finding this helpful? Like and subscribe, please. Medications, the hormonal birth control. Hormonal birth control does not do what you have been told it does. The pill does not do what you have been told it does. It causes hormone imbalance. In the short term, it looks like it's fixed the problem. So in the short term, it looks like, oh, my periods come back, or I don't have as much period pains. But in the long term, it actually causes more damage. Because remember, I gave the example of dairy. What happens when we start taking external sources of dairy, of hormones into our body? We're throwing off our own hormone balance. So this is the same thing that is happening. So hormonal birth control throws off your own hormones. And then antibiotics. Antibiotics often overlooked when it comes to balancing hormones, but if you use antibiotics often, then you are likely to throw off your hormone balance, because antibiotics literally means anti-life. And what happens when we take antibiotics and we consume antibiotics, they kill good and bad bacteria in our gut. Now, in our gut, there is bacteria that is specifically designed to metabolize estrogen. So when that is killed off from antibiotics, then you're not metabolizing estrogen properly, and then you're not eliminating it properly. So that's a problem. And then the last thing is painkillers, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, these common painkillers that we take. When you take them continuously all the time, they can also affect your hormone imbalance. They tend to affect your thyroid function as well. So those are some of the medications that can affect your hormone imbalance, or can cause hormone imbalance when taken over a long period of time. Finally, genetic predisposition. Like I said just a little bit ago, that if you have a history, for example, of obesity or diabetes in your family, then you are likely to be predisposed to developing polycystic ovarian syndrome. But that's not the only thing. That's just an example of how you may be genetically predisposed. Now, just because you have been dealt a certain deal of cards in life doesn't mean that's how it will end up. And this is why I will be able to point out to you in the next part, or part 3, how even though you have genetic predisposition, it won't determine the outcome if you change the practice in between. So essentially what I'm saying is, there's no family disease, there's family habits. So if there is, say, diabetes and obesity in your family, and you continue to eat that way, you continue to have the same habits, then you are likely to go on and develop polycystic ovarian syndrome. But if you change the input and you start eating well, and you start changing those same habits that got everybody else into that situation, you change your genetic expression and you end up with a different result, which is not getting PCOS, right? So it doesn't really matter what you started with, it's what you have control in changing throughout the way. So I have put together a little article on understanding what hormone imbalance looks like. It's called 5 Signs You May Have Hormone Imbalance. And in that as well, I've put what you can do to start reversing those symptoms, but what you can do in general to start reversing hormone imbalance. I will put that in the link below. And I hope you found this helpful, and now you have an idea of some of the things that you can already start to reduce and eliminate from your diet and lifestyle, so that you can start to reverse some of the hormone imbalance that you may be experiencing. Comment down below what you found most helpful. Of course, like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next video that I do post on part 2 of this hormone imbalance. And then also share it with another woman that you believe should benefit or could benefit from watching this. I'll see you next time. Be well.